Joe Zekas from YoChicago.com. I'm at K2 at K-Station this afternoon with Brian Kidd from Pappageorge Haymes. And Brian had a bit to do with this building.
It's a pleasure to be here and be able to talk about how we came up with the design for K2. I'm going to start a little bit by talking about the site. You know, the site was kind of an interesting challenge for us. We were sort of bracketed on all sides by different constraints. We had a high-speed rail just to the south of the project, an easement along that side of the project. We had Halstead Street Bridge, which is about 3 floors above grade. And we had Kinsey Street, which is almost more of an industrial street this far west. It's right across the street from a storage warehouse. We have a portion of the site is clipped by Hubbard's Cave and the Kennedy Expressway coming by. So there was a fair amount of site constraints that we had to deal with here. But we like to look at those challenges as being opportunities. And I think we were able to sort of maximize the use of the site by taking advantage of those constraints. You know, the idea that Halstead Street was 3 floors above Kinsey Street actually gave us a great opportunity so that we could come in off of Halstead Street. We had to cantilever the project over to Halstead Street because we can't support anything on that bridge. But that became our sort of entrance court for the building. We could put our parking down below that. So when you come in, there's kind of a nice auto court, a grove of birch trees in the front of the building, and our front lobby is right there. And as you come into the building, there's kind of a linear lobby that takes you back to the elevator core. On that same level that the lobby is, we have our leasing office, we have our pool deck, and all our amenities are all on that same level. So that became a great sort of beginning point for the design of the project, where we could have this, what is essentially the entry floor, have all these functions all on the same level, and it has these fantastic views to the south. This is the last parcel on K-Station plan development parcel, and there were 496 units left in the PD, and coincidentally that's how many units we have in this building. So that was kind of a fun design problem all by itself, trying to maximize the number of units on this parcel. And of course we were very concerned about making the building very efficient, and there's always kind of a play in terms of how large the floor plate is and how tall you're going in the building. You know, there's a sort of a sweet spot in terms of efficiency, about not going too high but also not making their floor plate too large. And then there's other design issues that come along with making a very large floor plate. That became kind of one of the challenges that we were dealing with in the design of the project. We ended up going to sort of a shorter building and making it very long. We have 17 units per floor. So to overcome that sort of issue, we didn't want a short, fat, squat building. We came up with this idea about splitting the building into 2 pieces in the center, and that kind of led to other opportunities where by doing that and shifting the building, each one of the corridors sort of dead ends into an exterior wall, and so that gave us an opportunity to bring some natural light into the very center of the building at the elevator core. By doing that shift, it kind of creates this break and doesn't make the building seem as massive as it really is, each one of the floor plates. One of the concepts that we had was, and we called this idea about breaking the building into sort of 2 masses, we called it the triple blade scheme. And each one of the blades was kind of a row of units along one side of a corridor. And so when we split everything, we had, you know, basically 3 rows of units that were split in half, and that became sort of the internal concept for that concept, which was this triple blade scheme. We knew that we wanted to create a break between some of the other buildings that were done at K-Station and this project. We wanted to maybe express a different look for this building. We had the Jewel Osco building between K2 and the other projects at K-Station, and so that kind of provided us with a nice sort of buffer between the two projects. It didn't have to look like the other projects. We talked about making this one sort of be an evolution from the other buildings that were done. This one was perhaps going to be a little more luxurious. It was going to have finer finishes. It was going to be a different product. We knew that this was going to be a shorter, longer building, and so we thought about expressing that horizontality in the building without making it be relentless, which is where we came up with the idea about shifting the floor plate into these triple blades. There's actually a nice mixture of very strong horizontal elements along with some verticality that you achieve when you look at the building from the ends. They're sort of very thin buildings from the end viewpoint. It has very strong vertical lines. It's a nice balance, we think, between the horizontal and the vertical. We have these spandrel upturned beams that kind of create that horizontal feel of the building. That actually makes the windows slightly smaller, and they're less expensive. Because of that, it takes fewer people to install those windows. Since they're not spanning as tall, there's less aluminum in the window system, so they're less expensive that way. We spent a lot of time looking at what the inside of the unit was going to feel like. We didn't want to have that spandrel come up too high so that as you're sitting in your living room looking outside, that you'd have a horizontal mullion in the way of that view, or that spandrel would be up too high and it would be distracting. The other thing that you'll notice when you're inside the units and how the furniture lays out, in some ways you don't really notice that spandrel as much. It doesn't take away from the view at all because of furniture placement and other things that are happening inside the units. The final product is surprisingly very much like our initial concepts and initial renderings that were done for the building. In our office, we've actually been doing a lot more three-dimensional studies on buildings very early on in the project through programs like SketchUp and some of these other three-dimensional programs that allow us to get a greater sense and feel for what the building's really going to look like. So pretty early on, we came up with these concepts and presented those to Fifield, and we knew that we sort of had hit the right direction for this building.